Let's start out with who we are. So we're NeighborWorks Pocatello. We've been in the area over 20 years. We provide services designed to create healthy neighborhoods, assist members of the community in achieving the dream of owning an affordable home. So we offer a number of services such as closing cost assistance loans, home rehabilitation loans, which this is one of those, rental and rehabilitation loans, financial fitness counseling, reverse mortgage counseling, credit counseling, new home buyers education, foreclosure counseling, and various other services, most of them at low or no cost. Today we're going to be discussing what the grant is, how you qualify for the grant, what you need to do to apply for the grant, what kinds of work you can use the money for, and the process of securing bids for the work to be done. I'll start by providing you some information. Some funds from this program were provided through the Federal Home Loan Bank of Des Moines' Competitive Affordable Housing Program. It's sponsored by NeighborWorks Pocatello, that's us, with additional support from our member bank, the Bank of Commerce. This program provides funds for homeowners to assist in repairing and rehabilitating their home. It's intended to help people who need significant work done on their home but would normally have trouble getting enough money together to get the work done. $15,000 is provided in a forgivable grant if you have a total of $15,000 or more in hard construction costs. And we'll explain a little bit more about what that means as we go through the presentation. So if you have one or more projects that need to be done to upkeep or repair your home, you can get $15,000 that will not have to be paid back. There's no requirement for repayment of the grant except under special circumstances. There are some conditions and qualifying factors to be eligible for the grant. So, eligibility requirements. We've got a chart here that shows the counties that we work in for this program and the qualifying income for your family size. It has to be at or under that income level based on the number of individuals who reside in the home. So to qualify for the grant, you have to meet the following conditions. You have to be at or below the listed income for your household size. That includes all residents of the home. Income from residents is included in the qualifying factors, so anyone that draws income in the home does need to be considered. Property does have to be owner occupied. Someone in the household must meet also one of the following conditions. So someone in the home must be age 62 years or older, have a mental or physical impairment, be HIV or AIDS positive, recovering from substance abuse, or recovering from physical abuse. You only have to meet one of those qualifications, just one of the household occupants. So the total hard construction costs have to reach $15,000 or more. If they're more than $15,000, you'll either need to borrow funds or provide out-of-pocket money to cover the remaining costs, the repairs or rehabilitation beyond that $15,000 grant. There will be additional fees or costs if you're financing that remaining amount. So if you're financing some or all of the additional amount, you'll need to consult with your lender to determine what you qualify for and what fees may be charged in addition to the borrowed amount. And that's going to change based on your lender. We do provide lending services through us as well. So what can I do with this money? We have a few examples up here. This isn't an all-inclusive list. We will provide you with a list of the qualifying repairs and rehabilitation that's more specific, but just kind of generally it'll do deck repairs, sidewalk repairs, add or improve stairs and ramps, add any American Disabilities Act improvements or adaptations that you may need to accommodate for special needs in the home. There's accessibility and safety additions can also be accommodated, like rails. Also energy efficiency upgrades, like providing a new furnace if you have an old, outdated, or poorly working furnace, for instance, or you need to replace single pane windows with double pane windows, and there's other things that can be included in this. The purpose of this grant is to help homeowners repair and improve their homes to ensure that the home is safe and livable. We want to keep you in your home for as long as possible, as long as you want to be in your home. So I'm going to kind of break for some commonly asked questions. So one of the questions we often get is, can I bring in my own money or use gifted funds to pay for the additional construction costs or contingency fees beyond the $15,000? Yes, you can. You can finance that amount, provide it yourself, or use gifted money. Another question we have is, if I finance the additional amount, do I need to do it through NeighborWorks Pocatello? You don't have to use us as a financer. We think our rates are very competitive, but any lender is acceptable as long as it covers the cost of the additional work. Question we always get is, what are hard construction costs? So that's the amount that will actually go towards the construction for materials and labor. Doesn't include financing or service fees associated with that financing. So that's the bids you get from the contractor to get the work done. And kind of answered this before, but do you personally have to meet the qualifications? Just one person in the household has to meet one of those the special qualifications. It doesn't have to be the person that's getting the work done or the homeowner or the borrower. It just has to be one of the residents of the home. Do I have to pay back the $15,000? No. Immediately on completion of the project, including your assistance with all required documentation, the grant will be fully forgiven. This does not apply to any other financing, of course, that you received outside of the grant. You will have to continue to be responsible for other financing based on the terms of whatever applicable loan you received. So the kind of qualification that when I said, no, you don't have to pay it back, the qualifier is if you fail to meet the requirements of the grant by missing required deadlines, failing to provide needed documentation, or you provide false information, you'll be ineligible for the grant. And so you will be required to pay out of pocket for any contract work that's been completed up to that point. You'll still owe the contractor money for whatever it was that they've completed. And you would have to cover that because the grant would no longer be in play. If you have any concerns or questions about whether or not you could become ineligible for the grant, just let us know. It's usually pretty clear. We have documentation that spells out your eligibility requirements. So, in summary for this section, it's $15,000 for repair and rehabilitation of your home. You need to have at least $15,000 in hard construction costs total. The home must be owner occupied. You need to meet the income requirements that we discussed, and someone in the home must meet at least one of those additional special needs requirements. So the next steps. Determine, of course, if you meet those qualifications, what your income range is. Someone in the house needs to meet at least one of those qualifying factors again. Find out what the overall cost of what needs done and make sure that it meets our minimum and maximum. Make sure that what you're wanting from us done is qualifying work, so it falls within the qualified improvements. And then, of course, you decide whether or not you want to proceed. So, wants and needs. This is a needs-based program, so often we want things that aren't necessarily needs, and then what's a need and what's a want can vary depending on your particular needs in your home. This grant is not to pay for things like a countertop that you'd like to upgrade to marble, but it's perfectly serviceable. It's for needs only. You are going to determine what projects are going to need to be done. It sometimes can be difficult to determine if something's a want or a need. Since this grant was designed to assist homeowners in meeting repairs they need or can't afford without some help, you'll have to determine if it falls into the category of need. So we've provided a homeowner checklist to help you organize what you're going to be working on and help you determine whether it's a want or a need. And we'll provide that checklist to you so that you can kind of get organized and get together all of the projects that you want to get done, and then help you determine whether or not it falls under qualifying work. So, the things that you need to bring into us in order to determine if you qualify for the grant. There's some necessary documents you're going to need to gather when you're meeting with the loan officer who's going to be determining your grant eligibility. Please make sure you bring all listed items when you apply. We can't reserve a spot for you on the grant qualifications until you've brought in all documentation and been determined that you do indeed qualify for the grant. If an item doesn't apply to you, we'll need signed documentation that it doesn't apply and why. We can't process your grant without these documents, and we'll provide you a checklist of the documents that we need. So we're going to need you to provide us completed intake documents and application, which we will provide you. We'll need you to provide proof of income. That would be like 2 months of pay stubs or verification of employment. Social Security or disability. We'll need your most current benefit statement that you get on a yearly basis. We'll need any 1099s that you might have received. That's usually for retirement, pension, or 401k withdrawals or self-employment. We'll need your prior 2 years' taxes, if applicable. We'll need your prior 2 years W-2s, if that's applicable. We'll need statements of all other kinds of income you receive. That includes child support, annuities, pensions, rental income, anything else that you have as a regular reoccurring source of income. We'll need 2 complete months of bank statements, and we need all of the bank statement, not just the ledger. We need the full bank statement. We'll need the hazard insurance binder on your home. That's a kind of fancy way of saying the proof that you have homeowner's insurance. And lastly, we'll need a divorce decree, if it's applicable, or any other documents that might affect the ownership of the home. That includes if it's in a trust or if it's partially owned with someone else. We need to have that information to show that you do indeed own the home and that all signatories who are responsible for the home are aware of the repairs and grants.
NeighborWorks, Pocatello, we do provide financing for qualified borrowers. The interest rates depend on your income. We go off of household income, and the interest rate can vary from 1 to 3.5%. We also need a contingency of 10%, and it's just added to cover any additional or possible changes of the work. Any of the unused contingency money will actually go back on your loan as principal once the work is complete. The loan factors, such as the minimum or the maximum that we can do, is just subject to review by our loan committee. Some exceptions can be made based on the circumstances of the loan and the repairs that are needed. Loan example number 1, minimum project amount. If you had a total of hard costs of $15,000, your fees and closing costs would be $263. Your contingency would be $1,500. Keep in mind that if this contingency does not get used, once the project is finalized, it'll get put either back on principal if you did a loan, or if you brought in your own cash, you get that refunded. The interest rate is 3.5%, APR 6.4. Repayment term is 5 years. That would make your monthly payment $32.07. If your interest rate was 1% with an APR of 3.87, your monthly payment would be $30.13. Loan example number 2, maximum loan. If your total hard costs were $25,000, your fees and closing costs would be $1,593. Your contingency would be $2,500, and your repayment term would be a 15-year term. Your interest rate would be 3.5% with an APR of 4.1. Your monthly payment would come out to $100.75. If your interest rate was the 1%, APR would be 1.56, and your monthly payment would be $84.34. Once again, keep in mind, if the contingency does not get used, it gets put back on principal.
So, next steps. Once you've got everything together and secured the grant and financing, you're going to schedule a meeting with the loan officer or get added to the top of our wait list if they don't have any available appointments. You'll also schedule an inspection with our construction specialist to determine the scope of work, in other words, what needs done on this project. After getting confirmation of approval for the grant, you'll have to get bids for the work. So construction specialist is going to call you to set up a time to visit your home. While they're there, they'll talk to you about what it is that you need to get done. In order to provide a complete and accurate scope of work, the construction specialist is going to need to access most of your home and property. You'll need to ensure that they're able to safely reach all the areas that they have to inspect. If there's areas that are obstructed or unsafe on the property, they'll need to be cleared out or made safe for them. If they can't be done at that time, you'll have to reschedule for a time when you can make sure this area is safe and accessible. Keep in mind that this may affect your eligibility for the grant if they're not able to inspect your property in a timely fashion. The construction specialist is going to check for health and safety issues that need to be addressed by that scope of work. So they may point out some things that they think need to be addressed in order to keep your home safe and livable. But they will work with you to define all the things that need to be done. They'll write a scope of work that you'll be able to provide to the contractors in order to secure bids. We're not going to force you to do any particular piece of work. We may suggest that things need done, but you are the ultimate decision maker on this. So some information about contractors. There is a stipulation in code that you have to have an RRP certified contractor if there is lead paint in your home. That means renovations, repair, and painting. Contractors have a special certification for this. It means they're able to safely handle lead paint. There's some qualifications in regards to that and how much paint's disturbed by the construction work and other things, whether or not they have to be RRP certified. But the EPA determines the certification, and certified contractors are listed on the EPA's website. We also maintain a list of RRP certified contractors, so if you need information, if you think that there's lead paint in there, we can definitely get you a list of contractors that can do that safely. They need to be, the contractors that you contact need to be licensed. It means they have to have a business license within the city that they're operating in, if it's applicable. Some smaller cities don't have city licensing, in which case they just need to be state licensed. They also need to have proper insurance and have made payments to a surety company for protection on a bond. So the city does maintain a list of licensed contractors. You can contact them for the list. We have a list of contractors we've worked with on a regular basis. We can provide you that list, but it's not all inclusive. You can reach out to any licensed, bonded, and insured contractor. Also, any asbestos hazards that need to be addressed by asbestos licensed contractors. So if there is asbestos, our construction specialist will probably point that out, and then you will want someone, if that's going to be dealt with, you'll want someone who is certified to handle that kind of hazardous material. So we require a minimum of 2 bids for any project you're going to do. There is no maximum number of bids. You can save yourself some money by getting additional bids. We usually suggest 3 bids if possible. We must take the lowest bid unless there are other mitigating factors. Mitigating factors are things like if the contractor who had the lowest bid is not able to get the work done in a reasonable amount of time, or other possible mitigating factors like the contractor bid the rest of the job and won all the bids, and they maybe didn't win one line of trades bids, but it's easier to have them do everything rather than utilize a separate contractor for one small piece of work. So once that's done, you're going to need to make sure that the bids include all aspects of the job on the scope. That's why it's important that you hand the contractors the scope. That way the bids are apples for apples. In other words, they're comparative. So if you have two contractors bidding on the same thing, you'll get reasonably comparative prices and get the best price. If they're bidding on widely different things or adding or removing things from the scope, you're not going to be able to compare the bids properly and will have to have the contractors rebid. So we've got a sample scope of work, but we can provide you a sample of what it's going to look like once our construction specialist is finished the scope of work, and you'll be able to hand that right to the contractor. That way you don't have to learn to speak contractor language. It's all written out for you. So some of the things that you'll need to know, the bids do need to be returned within 30 days of approval. So once we've told you you're approved for the grant, you do need to get to work getting contractors out there to bid. If it goes longer than 30 days, you'll need to contact us either to see if there's a possible exception that can be made, or you may lose your place on the bid and have to get behind someone else. And if we run out of grants, then we are out. We only have a limited number of these grants available, so please make sure that you're in contact with us if you're having trouble getting bids. Once you do have the bids, you'll need to make sure they get into us. You can have the contractor bring them to us, or you can bring them in person, as long as we get them within the approved time frame. When you receive confirmation that you're approved for the work, and everything's ready, we'll notify the contractors that they need to sign a contract, and then they can proceed with the job once they've signed that contract. The work contract, by the way, is an agreement between you and the contractor, not between NeighborWorks and the contractor. We're just facilitating the process and providing funds for this, but ultimately you are the boss of the project. It's your home, and the money is there for you to distribute to the contractor. So this contract will be your safety net and also spell out what it is that the contractor is required to do and what is required of you by the contractor. So if it should happen, we talked about that contingency before, if it should happen that extra work does come up during the process of doing this, the contractor needs to let us know how the scope is changing, and they need to follow this process or they will not receive payment for any work that they've done that's outside of the scope that they signed when they signed the contract. They're going to need to submit a scope of work change request. We can provide them that document, have them contact us. This must be signed by you and the contractor so that we know that the contractor's communicated to you that they want additional funds and you're okay with that. Contractor needs to spell out what they're going to do for those additional funds so that it doesn't have what is often called scope creep, which means that things just keep getting more and more expensive and they keep adding additional work. This needs to be submitted to NeighborWorks Pocatello, and it's going to be reviewed by the loan officer to make sure the funds are available and the construction manager to make sure that the work is necessary before the contractor does the work. If they do it before that process is done, they may not get paid. That is going to depend on the emergency of the situation, but we need them to provide this information in order for us to make sure they get compensated for any additional work. So make sure that if you have contractors that haven't worked with us before, that they're aware that they have to follow this process if there's any changes. So, in the end here, finalizing the work. When the work's complete and the contractors will sign a confirmation that they have completed the work. Call it a closeout letter, and they'll sign saying, I've completed all the work as assigned to me in the contract. You'll notify the construction manager and they'll schedule a time to come and inspect the work and make sure that it does indeed look like everything was completed and it's satisfactory. And then you'll sign that piece of paper as well saying, I'm good with this, the work is done to my satisfaction, and you can release the final funds to the contractor. And then we'll pay them and you can enjoy all the new upgrades and renovations to your home. So if you have any questions, you can contact our loan officer and or our construction manager in regards to any questions that you have. The loan officer will answer any related or applicable financing questions or money-related questions. The construction supervisor will be able to answer any questions about what's eligible work and whether or not you should add things or how things should be done. And they can also help you in contacting or dealing with contractors. In conclusion, we talked about what the grant is, qualifications for the grant, what the grant money can be used for, the application process for the grant, and how to gather bids for the work and get the work completed. So hopefully this has given you some information to start with in order to apply for and qualify for the home rehabilitation grant. Thank you.